What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Photo Finish, Scott Radio's home for motorsports in general and NASCAR in particular. I'm your host, Ben Schneider, and I'm joined tonight, finally, once again. It's been a while, hasn't it, Matt Cole?
It has been. It has been. It's good to be back, though. I appreciate it.
Good to have you back. Good to have you back on.
Thank you. I'm excited for. We got a lot to cover tonight, so I'm excited to go through it. Yeah,
we do have a loaded show for you guys tonight, but before we get into that, I do want to extend my thoughts and prayers out to the community at UNC Charlotte, where a lot of people in the NASCAR world are students and alumni, and I personally have two friends on Twitter, Kobe Lambeth and Nick Olson, who are students there, and it was just shocking when I got the news Tuesday evening that there had been a shooting on campus.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't heard a ton about it, so when I saw it in the itinerary for what we were going to cover tonight, I actually was just doing some research looking at what happened, and it's heartbreaking. And like you said, our thoughts and prayers go out to those, all those that are affected by the shooting, but it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, you really don't have the words to come up with something like that. And I don't think, I've seen some people saying this on Twitter, is that, you know, when you hear about it in the news, it's one thing. When it happens to people that are close to you and in your community, it suddenly becomes that much more real. And certainly our best wishes go out to everybody at UNC Charlotte, and especially those of the families of the students who were unfortunately killed and injured in the shooting. All right, so with that, let's get into the rundown. And we have what I think, and I hope most fans agree with me, is a major victory. NASCAR did something smart. They're going back to single car, and not only even single car, single round single car qualifying. So back like the good old days, and all the small teams are going to get that much more exposure, and we won't have to worry about these games where teams are waiting till the very last minute and nobody makes it back to the line, and Austin Dillon wins the pole based on his round 2 speed. Because Matt, what's your reaction to the single car qualifying returning?
I'm excited. I think going back to that is a good move, and like you said, it's something that we've been waiting for, something that we've been excited to hopefully see implemented, and now that it is, I think it's going to be beneficial for everyone involved.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So the move affects all 3 series, Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Gander Outdoors Truck Series. So how it's going to work is that longer tracks, so your super speedways, your 1.5 miles, your 2 milers, drivers will have 1 lap to make a qualifying time, and if short tracks, basically 1 mile in length and shorter, I think the cutoff's 1 mile and a quarter actually, but anyway, they'll get 2 laps at those tracks. Another interesting thing to note is they are still going to try group qualifying on the road courses, which I personally, if I ruled the world, I would bring it back everywhere. But, you know, I think when you look at how Formula One does it, they have group qualifying, and they have a system that works, and obviously the drivers are used to it. They've been doing it. That's how they've always done it. And Indy, you know, IndyCar does group qualifying on road courses a lot of the time as well. But when you get to the Indianapolis 500, you see single-car runs. IndyCar does single-car runs on ovals. NASCAR's always done single-car runs, and I think it's more just the nature of the tracks. You know, when you're on an oval, you get the toe and the draft on the straightaways. It's a much more simpler and I think a more fair process to have single-car runs, particularly on ovals, no matter what the series is. I think it's going to, from a logistical standpoint, work on road courses. I don't think it should be much of a farce like what we've seen several times this year. But I don't know. Hopefully in 2020 we have single-car runs everywhere. But there are only 3 road courses on the schedule, so it's one miracle at a time, I guess. But yeah, certainly thrilled that is coming back. It's something that a lot of fans have been pushing for.
I think that when they recognize the success that they're going to have on this smaller scale, that it will eventually be implemented into all forms of racing. I can hope, like you said.
Yeah. And some news yesterday, Joey Logano was at the White House with President Trump celebrating his championship. So everybody at Team Penske got to go, and this is continuing a tradition that goes back, I think, to the Reagan White House, with championship sports teams visiting the White House and the president. Of course, Martin Truex Jr. went last year to visit President Trump. I don't think Jimmie Johnson went in 2016, but of course that was the year with the whole transition between powers and everything. But Kyle Busch in 15, Harvick in 14, Jimmie, all those years that he won his championships, they all went to the Obama White House. So I think it's nice to see that tradition continue. I don't want to get too political here on this show, but you know, it's good to see, you know, when you hear stuff about the Warriors not going, and you know, the Eagles having their invitation taken away entirely by the president because of their differences. It's nice to be able to see if there are any differences, people will be able to put those aside and let the tradition continue.
Yeah, and I think it's awesome that NASCAR is being recognized and being able to engage in these visits. I think that's something that's awesome, and I think that's something that will help put it back on the map a little bit, that it's being recognized at that level with everyone else that we've seen, visit the White House. I think that's something that's a positive step in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of Jimmie Johnson, who, of course, I think it was 2013, Obama made a joke that, like, Jimmie should just be given a permanent pass into the White House because he was going back every other year. But speaking of Jimmie, this happened a few weeks ago. I've forgotten to mention it because we've been so busy with our rundowns and our guests, but he ran the Boston Marathon, which is a pretty big deal.
Wasn't aware that he was a runner. I never even knew that. That's
He's a triathlete, actually.
Is he actually?
He runs, yeah. He's, in my opinion, the fittest guy in the garage, and I think it's no coincidence that he's a 7-time champion because of it. I think it does give him a little bit of an edge.
Absolutely.
And I think it's more proof NASCAR drivers are athletes, but, take that for what it's worth, I guess. But, yeah, and his time was 3 hours, 9 minutes, and 7 seconds, which is a Boston qualifier. So he didn't qualify for this race on speed. He was just doing it as one of his celebrities running the race. But he's going to be back, or he could be back on merit next year if he wanted to. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't see why he wouldn't want to come back.
I was just about to say that. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't want to race.
Fantastic time. I know he said he was going for sub 3 hours, which when I heard that, I thought he was kind of out of his mind. But he came relatively close when all things considered. He was on pace for a little while, fell off a little bit at the end, but still, there aren't a lot of human beings out there who could do a marathon in just under 3:10.
There's a lot of human beings out there that can't even do a marathon. So it's really amazing.
Certainly a great achievement. And shifting over to IndyCar, the Indy 500 entry list is out, and I guess this speaks kind of to the health of the sport and the health of the event, that it's out this early as the month of May is just beginning. But there are also, this speaks to the health as well, there are 36 cars in the entry list, which means 3 of them are getting bumped. And if you were listening a couple weeks ago when I was on the show with Chase Strauss, any of the 36 could be those 3 that go home. There are no provisionals, no guaranteed entrants, so it could be Scott Dixon, the reigning champion, Will Power, the reigning Indy 500 winner, and Fernando Alonso, who is bringing all the hype with him back to Indianapolis this year. They could be the 3 that go home. I don't think they'll be the 3, but it leaves the possibility that they could be any of the 36.
Yeah, I think that possibility, that open possibility, is what's going to make it exciting. You mentioned those 3 names. I don't think that those will be the 3 that don't make the cut, like you said, but it definitely adds a little intrigue and interest, sparks a little anxiety, into who we're going to see compete. Yeah, well,
it's something that everybody has to feel. It doesn't matter if you won the pole or the race last year, or if you're a 5-time champion, or if you're just a rookie making your debut. Everybody has an equal shot. And Fernando Alonso in particular, I said last week that he was having some troubles, couldn't even get out on the track through the warm-up lane before his car broke down. So, Matt, I want to ask you, do you think McLaren and Alonso, despite all the hype that's building on his return and the fact that he did so well 2 years ago, should he be worried about getting bumped?
I would say no.
Kyle Kaiser, has he knocked Alonso out? He has! Oh! Kyle Kaiser and Hulkos Racing are in the Indy 500. Alonso's out. McLaren goes home.
You have a great team in McLaren and a great racer in Alonso, and I think that working together, they're going to be able to figure something out. I know we talked a little bit about this before the show, but I really do think that they can put the pieces of the puzzle together and figure it out. So I would personally say that he doesn't have to worry a ton about getting the boot. I think he'll be okay. So at least the way that I'm going into it, thinking about it, I'm expecting to see him race. I'd be excited to see him race.
Yeah, I definitely think he'll qualify.
Yeah.
I don't know that he'll be as strong or have an opportunity to win like he did when McLaren had the Andretti partnership a couple years ago, but I do think he'll be fast enough to make the race at least.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, maybe next week we'll dive in a little bit deeper and give our predictions for who might be the ones who actually get bumped. But I don't think that Alonso will be one of them. I think he should at least have enough speed to make the show.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if this return to Indy goes well, I guess it begs the question, what's Alonso going to be doing full-time next year? Because we heard this week that Brendan Hartley's actually coming back to Toyota in the World Endurance Championship, and Alonso's going to be taking a step back from that. And, of course, I don't think that's too surprising. He won Le Mans this year, which I think was his main goal, trying to win all these big races. So could he be back full-time in F1 next year and give that another shot if McLaren can turn things around? Or would he go full-time at Indy and try to get more experience if he shouldn't be fortunate enough to win the 500 this year?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult question. There's pros and cons on both sides, both aspects. I'd like to see him stay in the IndyCar and just and race there and feel that out. I think that would be interesting. I think that'd be exciting for the sport.
I think it'd be great for the IndyCar series as a whole, too.
Absolutely.
Bring a whole new audience over from Europe who would definitely be interested to see how he does. But knowing Fernando Alonso, he might be in an ARCA race at Daytona next year, for all we know, or a Formula E race or something crazy like that. Or I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised to see Alonso in Gravedigger at this rate, or in a monster truck or something. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he ends up choosing to do next year. Now that this departure from Toyota is confirmed. But I hope for the best for him in Indy this year. I think it would be great if he has a good race. Like I said, I don't know that he's going to be in contention to win it, but I think his fans who see this problem that McLaren have had in testing, I don't think they need to hit the panic button yet. I don't know that they should be, overly cocky and say, oh, you guys are worried for nothing. He'll make the show just fine yet. But I also don't think they should be panicked yet.
No.
So
I think it warrants a decent amount of being cautious but not being too careful running into these issues. But I do think they'll end up figuring it out, and I hope to see him run all year in the IndyCar. I think that would be exciting. I think that'd be what's best for the sport, and because he is such an adventurous guy, I don't see why he wouldn't venture into this career choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving into the K&N series now, and Matt, one of your favorites, Hailie Deegan, is actually running an East race this weekend. Not one that she was expecting to run, but she and BMR teammate Derek Kraus are going to South Boston for a doubleheader this weekend.
That's awesome. And I'm excited to see how Derek does, because Hailie's running it more for experience, and Derek is running it to compete. So I think the way that Derek's been racing this year, I think he has a good shot at placing well, if not winning. Yeah,
of course, Derek Kraus is only 3 points out of a championship lead, so he was saying coming out of Bristol, he almost feels like he has to go to the next race, and as long as he's in the championship fight, given what we're seeing here, he's probably going to run the rest of the East schedule. A little bit surprised not to see Brittany Zamora on the entry list, so I don't know. I wonder why, if they're bringing Hailie along, why not bring her as well? But I can't really wrap my head around that myself. I think that it would be good for her experience-wise too. If they're going to run Hailie for experience, she should have an opportunity as well. I don't see it. Well, of course, coming anywhere out on the East Coast, South Boston, Virginia, even it's really it's a bit of a trek for a team based in Roseville, California. So maybe they could only really afford to bring 2 cars. And of course, Derek's running a truck race at Dover this weekend as well. So he's gonna run the truck race at Dover Friday, and then head down to Virginia to run the K&N race on K&N races, I should say, on Saturday. Yeah. So it's a busy weekend for him. So we'll see how that goes. Certainly hoping for the best for them. All right, let's get into the Talladega recap here, and a couple of very different races, I would say, in terms of the on-track product. For the Cup Series, this was the debut of a new tapered spacer package, so it's kind of inaccurate now to call Talladega a plate track because the restrictor plates are gone. This is still something that restricts the engine a little bit, but it's a different kind of restriction. It's not a restrictor plate, so I don't know. Tapered spacer track, it doesn't roll off the tongue as well to me, so I'm going to still call them plate tracks probably by accident. I don't know how long it's going to take me to get used to that, but the speeds were up a little bit. Ryan Newman in particular, he exceeded 204 miles an hour in practice, so there was a lot of hype for the Cup race at least going into it based on what we were seeing with practice speeds and the pack that we were expecting. Yeah, I think I think it's exciting. I think that having something that's less restricting is phenomenal. Obviously, you want to keep the racers safe, but at the same time, you go to a race to see a race, you go to see speed to take it all in. So I think that finding this happy medium is something that's successful, and I think that's something that's going to play out, and both sides of the coin are going to win here. You're going to have the drivers that are going to be involved in something that's safe, something that can ensure their safety, but on the other
and fans are still going to get what they desire out of it, as opposed to what we've been seeing in the past.
So we get into the Xfinity race, and I have to say, if you listen to this show after Daytona, or I finally got my act together and got the episode on YouTube, so maybe you heard it there, but I think the Daytona Xfinity race this year was the worst race in series history, because it was basically hardly a race. It was just a parade of cars around the high line at Daytona, but we saw that train come back at times. It wasn't for the whole race this time around, so I'd say it was probably better than Daytona, although not by much. But I do want to give congratulations to Tyler Reddick, who ended up scoring the win, as well as Greg Gaulding, driving for Bobby Doddard's small team, nearly pulling off the upset with a second-place finish. So great for that small team to get some exposure. And I guess that is the nice thing about these super speedway races, is that despite the dangers that they bring with the pack racing and the big accidents we see sometimes, it does give those smaller teams a chance, if they can work with draft right, to get up there and mix it up at the front.
Yeah, I'm going to just echo exactly what you said there. I think that this is a great opportunity for smaller teams to make an appearance and get their name on the map. I think it was a little dull, it was a little dry, unfortunately, but altogether, it was still good to see Tyler Reddick win, and I think that we have some excitement here, seeing some smaller teams place well.
Yeah, and Reddick's actually having a pretty good year. If you take a look at his results, he's finished in the top 5 every single race except Daytona, where he finished 9th, and Vegas, where he finished 14th. So he's actually improved over last season. I know it sounds kind of weird to say he improved over a championship year, although, Matt, what did you say about his championship last December? Was Tyler Reddick a deserving champion?
I don't want to take anything away from him, but I would say no. That's a hard no. That's a hard no. Yeah, that is. Again, I want to do it with the most respect possible, but like you said, he won 2 races, kind of, hung around, stayed in the mix, but you had Chris Bell.
And what does that say about the playoff format that we have right now?
I don't think it's rewarding the best driver. And I know that's hard to say, and that's, pretty harsh, but that's where I'm coming from.
So, just think about that in that perspective, I guess. But he is having a better year statistically so far, which is interesting, because I feel like Childress the last couple of years, even though they have the same Chevy, well, not even the same Chevy engines, but the same manufacturer at least. Mm-hmm. Of course, they have ECR engines, and Junior Motorsports has Hendrick engines, but he's having a better year with a team that I think has been a little bit behind Junior Motorsports in recent seasons. So it's interesting to see that improvement out of him.
Yeah, it makes it exciting to see what's to come.
Yeah, well, what's coming up for Tyler is he's actually going to be back in the Cup Series coming up at Kansas. So he's back in the 31 car that he drove in the Daytona 500. So this was announced on NASCAR America this week. I don't know if this is a reward for winning the Xfinity race, or if this was already planned and they just happened to announce it this week. But I think it's good to see him get some extra experience in that third RCR car. So
yeah, I would agree with you.
Going forward, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he does. Of course, again, I think RCR's Cup program's still a little bit behind. Although Austin Dillon and Daniel Hemrick have shown a lot of qualifying and practice speed this year. And even in the races, I think they're a little bit ahead of where RCR was last year. But yeah, good for Tyler at least to get the experience. And who knows, he's got certainly an above-average car underneath him. So I'm sure he'll be capable of a pretty good run.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the Cup Series race. And I have to say, best Cup race at Talladega in a long, long time. Gave me vibes of the Gen 4 era, the packs that we saw. Leader had a hard time holding the lead for more than a handful of laps. And the wrecks that we saw, in terms of the quantity of cars, I know Kyle Larson had a spectacular crash on the final lap as he was slipping down the backstretch, but the big ones were not super big in terms of like what we saw at Daytona with a 20-car pileup. The big ones were not as big in size as we're accustomed to seeing, which I think is good. We actually had a decent number of cars finish the race with minimal, if any, damage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Again, I'm going to echo what you said there. I think that there was minimal damage. It still makes it exciting. I think it was a great race, like you said. We weren't seeing a parade of cars. It was something that was exciting, something that was intense, and really what the sport should be. Really, what we should be seeing, every week. But I think altogether it was a great race. I think it was the best one thus far this season.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would have to agree. And maybe the fact that the most popular driver won has something to do with that as well. But Chase Elliott scoring a very popular victory at Talladega, and Alex Bowman, his Hendrick teammate, got his best career finish in second. And I have to give a shout out to Ryan Preece too. You know, this is a guy that, you know, grew up racing modifieds and still is racing modifieds. A local short track guy, you know, working his way up the ranks the hard way, the old-fashioned way. Finally getting a big break in the Cup Series with JTG this year. So great to see him have a podium finish here at Talladega.
Yeah, I think that's exciting, and I'm happy to see it as well.
Yeah, and certainly hope JTG can improve their Cup program as well. I know they're one of the smaller teams in the sport, but Ryan Preece, I think, has proven that he certainly belongs in the Cup Series. Yeah, and he's got a bright future ahead of him as well. So the finish to the race, I guess if there was a downside, the finish was a little bit controversial. But then again, it's a Talladega race, so what finish at Talladega isn't controversial in one way or another. But coming to the white flag, to grab the white flag rather, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. kind of spun all on his own. I don't know if he had a tire going down or what happened, but he kind of went head on into the outside wall. So that left some damage and debris alongside the track. But NASCAR didn't throw a yellow. And I guess they wanted to extend the race as long as was possible because they couldn't finish under green, obviously, because all the debris that was right in front of the start-finish line. But then we get to the backstretch, and Kyle Larson, Jeffrey Earnhardt, and a few others were involved in a spectacular wreck. And Kyle Larson's flip in particular was honestly one of the scariest accidents I've seen in recent memory. So, Matt, I want to ask you, do you think NASCAR should have thrown the caution when Stenhouse spun out? Obviously, it's easy to say that knowing what would have prevented the wreck. You couldn't have known that the wreck was going to happen in the moment, but would you have liked to have seen it finish under caution a little bit earlier for the sake of safety, or do you believe in letting them finish under green and throw them a yellow as late as earthly possible?
I think I would agree exactly with what you were saying earlier, where you can't have the idea of, you can't understand what's going to happen as the race plays out. So I honestly don't see any fault there. I think that it's exciting. Have them finish under green, throw the yellows out as late as you can. I think that was the best move. I think they made the right decision there. And it's unfortunate what happened and how, you know, there was that scary flip that Larson endured, but you can't assume, you can't predict these outcomes. So, and I think that's what makes it exciting too. So I really can't fault NASCAR for what happened there.
Oh.
I
think I would have to disagree. I probably would have thrown a yellow just for safety reasons, but I don't know. What do you think of overtime? What do you think of green-white checkers? The idea that we want to finish the race under green, just generally speaking.
I mean, to be honest, I'd probably have to do a little more research there and figure out the way the pros and cons.
Because to me, it's like,
you
know, we have stages. You know, those are kind of like intermissions or quarters or like playoffs and charters. It goes with trying to make NASCAR resemble a stick and ball sport as much as possible rather than a racing series. You know.
Yes.
They don't. If there's a wreck on lap 198 of the Indy 500, they don't turn the Indy 500 into the Indy 510 or the Indy 520 by adding a couple extra laps, you know? Whereas Daytona, almost every year, the Daytona 500 becomes the Daytona 522.5 or something, however many laps you need to extend it by. And I don't know, just maybe because I'm a numbers and stats guy too, it sounds weird to see, oh, they actually ran more than 500 miles of a Daytona 500, as it's called. But I don't know. I would have them just go the advertised distance, and if we finish under green, that's fantastic. If not, then oh well. But I don't know. I know fans are certainly divided on that, and you're not going to please everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And finally, I just have to say, the Fox Sports coverage. I mean, wow. This was absolutely abysmal, and you know, I almost feel bad saying that. You know, because I know there are a lot of great people at Fox, and Fox still, like the Earnhardt Gordon documentary that they put out at the beginning of this year, I think was fantastic. There are still a lot of great people there doing great things, but on average as a whole, it's mind-boggling how far Fox have fallen in recent years, especially you consider now that they've had 18 years of experience now broadcasting these races to do this. And I feel like a lot of the core team that were there from the first race in 2001 are still there. You know, Mike Joy's still on the play-by-play. And I shouldn't, this isn't all the booth. I do think the booth was off their game a little bit, but I'm mainly talking about the production and the camera work and all that. And the commercials. There were just so many commercials, and obviously you don't know when cautions are going to come out, but they were so poorly timed, and things that did happen, they weren't even side-by-side where you have the race playing on the left side of the screen, but the commercial on the right. Like, you know, I feel like you could have at least done that sometimes. And then with 15 laps to go, we were seeing an interview of Joey Logano, you know, on the right side of the screen. And it's like, you know, when you're that close to the finish, can you just show the race?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you had all race to show that interview or talk about Logano, but you wait until it's crunch time. And then with 7 to go, whenever Chris Buescher's accident was with Justin Haley and a couple other guys, we were seeing an onboard of Logano with his steering wheel and everything, taking up half the screen, and it took Fox like 4 seconds to cut away from that because we have the wreck.
Yeah.
So it's just the production of the race was just infuriating as a viewer to see how poorly done it was. And then the accident on the final lap, Fox really didn't capture. Like, I didn't even know Larson had flipped until we watched the replay. Like that was a total shock to me. I knew he'd crashed, obviously, but the camera angle replay was, I mean, not even the replay. The fact we missed it live is bad enough, but the replay wasn't even that great. So the camera work definitely needs some improvement as well.
I think, and I didn't get to see the race in its entirety, but what I did see, it was almost like a local station had put it together. It wasn't good. Like you said, it wasn't good. It wasn't something that I expect or that I want to see from Fox. And, you know, taking a similar stance, I don't want to. There are good people at Fox, and don't want to give the booth, you know, all the attention or negative attention, I guess I should say. But it was a mess. It was a mess, and abysmal is, I think, the perfect word for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I like Darrell Waltrip as a person, but I do have to say, and I mean this in the nicest way possible because I know he's already on his way out, but he said something during the broadcast that was like, well, viewers at home may ask, you know, how can a driver save fuel, you know, at Talladega? And the answer is, if you lift the throttle pedal a little bit, don't run as hard, you're going to burn less fuel. And, like, I don't know. You don't even have to be a NASCAR fan to know that, you know, lifting a little bit isn't going to burn as much fuel. Like, if you know basic stuff about cars, like, so I don't know. It's like 99.999% of your audience already knows that. So, you know, there's got to be something else you can talk about.
Some of the commentary, it did feel like filler. Like, it really did. And that's a perfect example of it. That was a little peculiar to me. Yeah,
absolutely. And, you know, I have to think, you know, Formula One, with Sky Sports not showing commercials in their coverage in the UK and ESPN simulcasting it, ESPN has Mother's Polish sponsor the race. So it's, you know, Formula One coverage on ESPN brought to you exclusively by Mother's Polish. And a big thank you, of course, to Mother's Polish for doing that. But you would have to think that, you know, if F1, which isn't nearly as big of a state as NASCAR, you know, ratings-wise and everything, if they can get Mother's Polish to do that on ESPN, you would think Fox and NBC as well. I mean, I think NBC shows too many commercials a lot of times as well. But you would think that they could get somebody to at least help limit the number of commercials that we're seeing. Like, there's got to be some other way. Because if you think of a soccer match, you know, those have 2 45-minute halves. And sometimes, you know, the score is 1-0. So if you had, imagine commercials during a soccer match, and imagine being in commercial while the only goal of the game is being scored. Like, how disastrous would that be? I mean, this is really the only sport where we take commercial breaks during the action. Because in baseball, the commercial breaks are between innings and pitching changes and everything. In basketball, they have planned immediate timeouts, or they take a commercial during a timeout. Football's the same way. Like, we don't miss any of the actual game.
Yes.
You know, NASCAR, we do miss some of the race, and a lot of times they go to commercial at bad places.
Yeah, and I think that even the solution you offered, and it was mind-boggling to me that it wasn't just a split screen, why they didn't just go to a split screen effect, and then you can run your commercials, you can run the ads, but you can also still have the race going at the same time, and that's something that the PGA Tour has taken and utilized, and it's something that's worked really, really well. It's something that is specifically on Saturdays and Sundays, you know, when the tournaments start to heat up, you're still catching the action, but the broadcasting network is able to show those commercials and make revenue.
Yeah, I've lost track of how many times Mike Joyce said, "Now a quick word from Duracell," and we hear that it's the #1 trusted brand. Like, I don't know. Those ads are getting pretty old, I think, as well. But, yeah, I don't know. There's time to right the ship for sure, but I don't know how much hope I have, unfortunately.
I agree.
Yeah.
And
like I said, I almost feel bad saying it at this point, but it's even last year. I've gotten on Fox's case on Twitter previous years, and I've tried defending them for so long, and it's just gotten to the point where I'm like, I'm done being nice. I have to call you out at some point.
Yeah.
And Sunday's case was, I think, the worst it's ever been, which is pretty bad because it's been bad in the past, particularly this season. So certainly hope for some improvement there. All right, so let's move into Formula One a little bit. So the Azerbaijan Grand Prix was this weekend, and another race, another Mercedes won too. So for the first time in F1 history, I mentioned they tied the 92 Williams team in China with their third 1-2 finish. This is the first time in the 70-year history of the F1 World Championship that a team has opened the season with 4 consecutive 1-2 finishes.
It's impressive, and I'm excited about it, but I'm also at the same time not surprised that's the case. So, yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's exciting to
Well,
witness
I don't know.
history.
I think a lot of people are kind of surprised.
Really?
Though. When you look at how, I mean, I know, Matt, you haven't been here in a while, but Ferrari were on top in testing, and they had pace in Bahrain, and of course Charles Leclerc probably should have won. Not probably, he should have won Bahrain. Had his engine not gone sour, but. Yeah, you think of how dominant Mercedes were from 2014, 2016. They never did this then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, at least Ferrari are kind of there, and Vettel wasn't too far behind even in the race, and yet here they are, and they look like they're unstoppable.
I wonder how the rest of the season's going to pan out, and I mean, if we're going to see a 5th 1-2 finish. I don't know. I don't want to jump to conclusions or.
Well, the
fifth
race is in Barcelona. So last time they were at Barcelona, of course, it was just testing, but Ferrari had about a half second over the rest of the field. So you would think it's a stronger track for them, but we'll see. The way this season's been going, who knows? And another note: Valtteri Bottas actually won this race. It wasn't Hamilton Bottas. It was Bottas Hamilton. So for the second time this year after Australia, Bottas gets the upper hand over his 5-time world champion teammate.
I think I think that plays out well. I'm excited, and again, I looking at it from like a team perspective, you still have the same outcome. So for me, that's where my mind is. It's tougher for me to kind of look at it as individuals. So I don't want to, take this win away from him because it is exciting. But I really hadn't even noticed that. I was really focused on the team aspect as opposed to the individual racers.
Yeah, well, it's great to see Bottas up there as well, considering he didn't win a race all year last year.
Yeah.
And it almost makes you wonder if Bottas can keep this pace, if it's going to be like another Hamilton-Rosberg in 2016 where, the Mercedes were obviously so far ahead of everybody, but Rosberg was keeping pace with Hamilton that year and, of course, ended up winning the championship. So it would be exciting to see if we can't get some team parity, at least some driver parity within the teams. And, of course, then team politics always get kind of interesting there.
That's where I was going to go with that. Is I'm interested to see how long this will be. I don't want to say put up with, but what's going to happen here with the team politics. It's obviously unfortunate, but that's the case. That's the way it works. Racing's a business, and unfortunately, that's what you're gonna see. What's going to be involved when it comes to this business. But I really hope it doesn't detract from the excitement or the possibility of seeing a different winner every week, even if it is the same team. Like you said, seeing parity between the racers would be exciting.
Yeah. You just have to wonder what's happened to Ferrari. Like it's crazy, to think about how they looked so strong and that this was finally going to be the year that they took the fight to Mercedes, and yet here we are. And Charles Leclerc made a mistake in qualifying, so that set him back. That was basically his race weekend done, at least in terms of competing for the win. And Vettel just simply didn't have it to compete with Mercedes.
Yeah, it seems like these minor issues, these minor setbacks, but they're still issues and they're still setbacks. So it's just overcoming this hump of these minor issues that are holding them back. I hope they do. I hope they do. I'd like to see Ferrari do well, or piece it back together, figure something out, find a little more ebb and flow. And I think that if they can just kind of go through it one step at a time, as opposed to like try to attack everything at once and let it snowball, I think they could figure something out. I don't know, though. I don't know what's happened. I don't know why they've kind of fallen off the face, not fallen off the face of the earth, but, they're just, it's surprising. It's surprising to see them not do so poorly. They're
still second in the constructors, which
yes.
is better than 8 other teams. But when you're at Ferrari, the late Sergio Marchionne once said, if a Ferrari that's not winning is not a Ferrari.
Exactly.
So, and it's been a while since Ferrari have won. The last time they won either championship was 2008 when they got the constructors, but I don't know. It's looking like, the season's still early, obviously, but I would think with how far they are down already, it's got to play a psychological role. Just getting in Vettel's head in particular, because we've seen Vettel make a lot of mental mistakes. So now that it's already this early in the season, he's already so far back. Obviously, he has time to catch back up, but I don't know. I don't see it happening at this point. I think it's already playing very well in Mercedes' hands.
Yeah, so. And while he's trying to still play catch up, everyone else is still moving ahead. It's not like time's stopping here. So he's really going to have to, really put forth 2 times the effort in order to just keep up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, everybody's moving ahead, as you said.
Yeah.
Except maybe Williams. As if this season could not get any worse for the Grove-based team. Just a complete disaster.
Yeah.
Once again, and it wasn't even. George Russell ran over an improperly secured drain cover to one of the manholes. Baku is a street circuit, so you have those all over the track. Well, this one wasn't secured properly. Russell runs over it, and that's his whole car and chassis destroyed. And for a team, struggling so much to stay alive as Williams is right now, you think of how devastating that is. And then Robert Kubica also crashes in qualifying or in practice, or one of them. So that's your whole race. As if the race weekend weren't lost already.
Yeah.
Because of where they are right now. That's just got to be so devastating.
And it's frustrating too, because it's something that you don't have control over.
Yeah. And the same thing happened to Roman Grosjean and Haas in Malaysia in 2017, and the settlement was actually just reached the other week. They are going to get some compensation for that, so I'm sure Williams will probably take some legal action. Honestly, I think they kind of have to with the state that they're in right now. But
I was about to say that.
Yeah, just such a shame to see such a historic team struggling as much as they are.
Yeah.
When you hear the name Williams, you don't associate it with the back of the field, and yet that's where they've continued to fall over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I don't know. It's for me, I guess the most frustrating thing is that it is something that was out of their control, really. And anyone else could have run into that issue, but it was Williams. It was that's what I guess what's most disappointing. Yeah. What's most frustrating
if this happens to Mercedes or Ferrari, obviously they've got the budget for it. But,
absolutely.
Williams right now being one of the independent teams, it's absolutely devastating.
They can't afford to. Yeah.
Especially one of the independent teams that's as far back as they are in terms of where their car is. So, yeah, certainly hope. I don't know how much it even would be if everything went right for them going forward. And they're already so far behind. How much room to improve do they even have, and can they catch some of the other teams at the back of the pack? Certainly a shame, but we are pulling for them.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We'd love to see them at least score some moral victories. As the season goes on. So that's going to be it for this week's edition of the Photo Finish. Next week, NASCAR returns to Dover. Matt and I, unfortunately, will not be headed down this time around, but we'll bring you all the action from there. And, of course, it's the month of May, so I'm sure we'll have some IndyCar and Indy 500 stuff to talk about as well. So, Matt, you're hopefully going to be back next week, right?
Yeah, I hope so. I think that
looking at the schedule here,
so long as everything plays out the way that I'm planning it to play out, I'll be back next week.
All right. Well, for Matt Cole, I'm Ben Schneider, and that's it. So we'll see you in the next episode.